Well, it's a day in the lakes today for Robin and I, and I'm going to be shooting panoramics. Well, despite the weather, we are hoping to get up onto the tops later, but at the moment the weather's only fit for these little fellas. Now, I no longer have a panoramic camera, having recently sold my X-Pan, but there's no reason why you can't shoot panoramics with any camera. And today I've got a couple of cameras with me. I've got my old Nikon FE, and I've also got a digital camera if I decide to shoot some colour work. The thing is, all I have to do is crop in. Now, obviously cropping in will reduce quality, so with that in mind I've gone for a very slow film. Now, the film I've got loaded today is Rollei Retro 80S. Now, this is not only a very slow film, it's quite contrasty, which will suit the somewhat dull conditions. So I've just taken a first shot of some trees over here with a short telephoto, and let's see how that turns out. Now, I've used my little iPhone preview device to give me the letterbox format like an X-Pan. So obviously I'm going to be excluding the top and bottom of the frame, so it's just a case of visualizing it, pre-visualizing it with the iPhone, and then making sure I get the right elements in the right place, and of course I'll develop it and crop it down in Lightroom later. Here we go. This is about f11, 70 millimeters, yeah, and about a quarter of a second, I think, there. Set at infinity. Lovely.
Well, I do like the way this has turned out ultimately. I've lightened the trees in the centre ground to bring your eye in, and also darkened down the lake a little bit, but there's plenty of detail in there from this film and lens combination. I've also put a bit of a vignette on there because it's a tricky aspect ratio, I'll be honest. It's probably a bit wider, than I'd like to shoot here. But it's certainly a good start to the day, and yeah, it bodes well for the rest of the day.
Well, I've used the digital camera to give me a beautiful narrow crop-in, so a little fence going in here, and I don't want any sky, and I don't want this water in the foreground probably. Also exclude these branches, but visualising this as a scene here in colour with the rain, it's absolutely fantastic.
Now, I was initially quite pleased with this one, but in hindsight it's not worked quite as well as I'd hoped for. I don't mind the crop actually, but I did realise I'd taken this similar image about 3 years ago with some ADOX CMS20, very high resolution black and white film, in brighter conditions, and I think I prefer that shot here. But I don't mind the colours. I have played at the magenta a little bit, but the letterbox crop, it is quite extreme, and I must admit I am struggling to work with it.
Well, we've come up onto the top of the fells now, and the rain was hammering us down on us all the way, so we stopped photographing. But now it's clearing and we've got some lovely mist behind us, so time to crack on, I think. Well, it's a bit wet, but I think with the prevailing light coming up behind the hill, it will work quite well in the panoramic, although I've done a couple of verticals as well, just in case. May have been nice in the square format, but I don't want to go mixing my aspect ratios today. Now, I would like to get the film camera out again, the black and white, the black and white, and shoot with that Rollei 80, but it's too wet. The camera is going to get soaked, the digital camera is getting wet. If it does hang off, I would love to get that camera out, but I've just said that. Hello, dog.
Well, whilst loitering around, I did take this single shot here. Again, it's a crop, it's not a multi-image stitch. And I do quite like the atmosphere and the colours in it. It's quite evocative, and it does capture the mood quite well, the rain. The good thing about rain is after the rain you get this lovely mist. But again, I'm finding it a little bit long. I'm not quite sure about my crop either. So what do you think? I've cropped it down a bit further here. Bit more emphasis on the mountains really, bit less distraction in the bottom right. But again, I'm finding it lopsided. The right hand side just isn't right. That letterbox format's tricky.
Well, the light has come really good for us, and there's amazing cloud billowing up in the valley now, but we've got to get up onto the top to get a bit of a view down onto it. So pardon me for being slightly out of breath, but that's what I'm looking at. hopefully you agree that's worth the effort.
Well, perfect conditions indeed. I mean, beautiful cloud here. I have had to work on the trees in the foreground again to bring up their brightness. They're a little bit dull, but there's no real issues here with that crop. I mean, there's plenty of detail in the image, and I'm only using a standard 20 megapixel sensor here. I could have used it in the high res mode, but to be honest, there's no need. There's enough there. Make a lovely panoramic for the wall, and again, it's just taken from the single frame. Now, whilst at this position, I had to take one of the longer shots, sort of zoomed right out of my my 14 to 140 Panasonic zoom. Now, this is lovely. I prefer this. Prefer the textures here. It's more monochromatic. It's more me. So, yeah, well worth the effort, I think.
I'm just wondering if I should try and get a black and white while the light's still favourable and it's not raining. Probably the answer is yes. Right, well, I have taken a couple with my 70 to 150 short zoom cropping in, but I've now got the 35mm prime on, a quarter of a second, f11, wider shot. Okay, I'm just going to do a safety shot, just using the self timer, by the way, on the Nikon, which gives you effectively mirror up, because this camera doesn't have mirror up, so it'll take away the bounce of the shutter. There we go. That's it.
I mean, having referred to the monochromatic look of one of the earlier shots from this position, I had to shoot it with a film camera. A little bit tricky because I'm talking about a quarter of a second here at f11. It was very dull by now. But I do think it suits the black and white. I'd actually think this is the best black and white one I got on the day. And again, plenty of detail in there from this rather narrow crop. I mean, you're talking about a very small amount of a 35mm negative. Nowhere near the quality of the X-Pan, but I do have the advantage of being able to use my longer lenses.
Now, it wasn't ideal for me there to feel so rushed in shooting with the film camera. I can't shoot handheld because it's a 50 speed film and it's quite dull today. So I had to hurry along and take the compositions quite quickly. Like I say, not ideal, but it's better that, whoops, than not getting the shot at all. And yeah, I am quite hopeful that one of those is going to work out quite well. I actually took one with a very wide angle 20mm lens as well, just at the end there. If it rains heavily, I'll get soaked, and it has been raining a hell of a lot this morning, but that's what gives us the great skies. Now, I've shot these trees before, or mainly this tree on the right of the three, but the rain is coming into our face at the moment, so it's going to just immediately wash out my lens. So probably give it a bit longer and hopefully get some of that mist rising again if the sun comes through. May go for the three trees, may just isolate one, which means getting a bit higher and possibly a bit closer.
Now, I do feel at this point I'm getting closer to the sort of panoramic look. Maybe it's having shot it all day now for about sort of 6 hours. This does suit the panoramic, that real letterbox crop, more than I would say the other images I've shot so far. I think it needs that sweep to get this whole vista in, and it's worked as well as any of my square shots would from this location, and far better than a sort of 16 to 9.
In the meantime, I think what I'll do is I'll have a quick look at another distant view, possibly of Lake Coniston, or maybe not. Some lovely trees over there as well. Oh, look at the light coming through now. Problem is you can get a bit giddy in situations like this and not know what to shoot. Oh, rain's stopping, so back with you in a minute. Well, it is fabulous up here now. There are views in all... Oh, fantastic rainbow. Robin's just pointed out a great rainbow coming up over there. Hang on a sec. Just look at that. Crack out the camera, Steve. Well, yeah, fabulous rainbow. I'm not sure rainbows are really my thing, and I don't know what to do with it, certainly in panoramic, but beautiful colouring anyway. So, as you can see, the views from up here are rather spectacular, and it has made it worthwhile coming up here and getting very wet. So I'll just wipe the lens off for you. Getting very wet because you don't get dramatic skies and colour and rainbows without rain. So all in all, cold, wet, but very pleased.
Okay, I had to show one with the rainbow in there. I'm not really a fan of rainbows or it's sort of pretty pictures. I mean, who remembers the coking rainbow filters from the 70s and 80s? I do, with horror. But it was a beautiful rainbow and it persisted for about half an hour, so here you go.
And when it comes to the panoramic side of today, I don't know how well these will work in the panoramic. I have a digital camera that shoots 16:9 as the tightest crop, most panoramic. So I'll have to bring it down further than that. So I have an idea, and that's all in colour. For the film ones, a bit more hit and miss. I just don't know, but I am hopeful. Only taken a couple of scenes with the film camera, like I said, because of the rain.
Now finally, this is the image of the day for me by a country mile. I absolutely love it. I've had to work on it to bring up some highlights in the centre to bring your eye through to the mountain range, but if ever an image cried out for that panoramic letterbox format, this is it. I don't feel it's unbalanced in any way. It just works. It works 100% for me. I couldn't be happier with it. It's made the whole trip worthwhile. It's definitely one of my favourite shots from the year. And yeah, thank you X-Pan format.
The light has come back quite strongly. I was about to put the angle finder on to get a better top-down view, but the light's so good I can't afford to waste any time, so I am going to shoot this again at 1/4 of a second. F16. Just while the light's on the foreground and some on the mountains in the rear. Possibly one more frame, it's probably worth it, a bit of a safety shot. Now for those who haven't seen an earlier video I did a couple of years ago about angle finders, this is my little Nikon DR3 angle finder for the Nikon FE and FM range of cameras. Now what it allows you to do is view down through the viewfinder very much as if you were using sort of a medium format camera. And it makes the image appear more natural rather than peering through the viewfinder. Somehow you get better separation, you just feel a bit more connected with the image. So when I've got time, like I have now, it's not raining, I like to set it up and use it.
Now I know I said the previous black and white shot was probably the best of the black and whites from the day, but I'm starting to change my mind. I do think this works. It's got the beautiful foreground trees, got just enough of the mountains, cutting out too much of the sky I think was in there in the original frame. I think this works much better. Sky wasn't as punchy as it might appear here, so it was dragging the eye away. But this does work very well, and I'd now say this is my favourite black and white.
Well, that is it from me and Robin today. Fantastic day. We've got a lot of variety into today. We didn't really stay still for too long, despite the weather, so we've got a lot of varied shots. Now, as I said earlier in the video, these are all going to be panoramics. You've seen that already. So yeah, just let me know what you think. Did it work? Did it not? Should I have kept the X-Pan? Well, I haven't, so there. Tough. And I'll see you again on the next one. Thanks for watching.